All right, welcome to Kick It To Me. My name is Mathew. I'm a self-confessed nerd, self-confessed footy tragic. I go for Collingwood, as you can evidence by here. And again, giant nerd. The books of all the club history's got a few there, like Bulldogs, Richmond, Collingwood, obviously St Kilda, Carlton. A lot of interesting, nerdy things there. My prospectuses are at the bottom. Didn't put those on display. I stream on Twitch, so link will be in the below. But firstly, I want to talk about the music that was playing. That was no copyright sounds. They have great playlists for every need you have. So if you need something to listen to, do listen to them. They're nice. Like if you're going running, you got something there. If you're working, they got something there. Link will be in the description. So let's move on to the schedule. So as you can see on the screen, we've got the round recap. We've got discussion, so I'm going to be talking about an issue in the AFL and putting my own spin/take on it. You may agree, you may disagree. That is cool. I love feedback. Then we're going to move on to the team of the week, round previews, and Supercoach talk or Supercoach section where you get to see how I spaffed my team up the wall. I'll talk about a few things there, go through some captaincy options, something you could maybe use. And then I'm going to look at a media call. And I'm going to put my own take on it, my own interpretation, and try and get a bit of discussion going from there. Lastly, if you want to, if there's a section you like that you're like, oh, I really want to hear that, on the side, I've got chapters. Click on the chapter you want to hear. That way you can cut through all the drivel. I think that's really good. So that's all timestamped at the bottom. So I think let's get on to it. So, start of the round, Western Bulldogs versus Brisbane Lions up at the Gabba, and I'm going to preface by saying this round was the round of injuries. There were so many injuries. I don't know, was it something in the weather? There were hamstrings, there was a disgusting hit in the St Kilda Carlton game, which I'm going to get to in a moment. I don't think was there any game where there was no head knock or injury? It was just a really surreal round. Anyway, Brisbane beat the Bulldogs by 41 points. And I think the big takeaway from this, for me, watching it, was this is how good Brisbane can be. They moved the ball so well. That link up, that kick into the full 50, I think was that big differentiator in the team, in the two teams. That forward movement, that was so good. Lincoln McCarthy, is there a more underrated player in the AFL? If he played in Melbourne now, with this form he was exhibiting, he used to be at Geelong, but if he was now playing in Victoria with this form, how highly rated would he be? It is amazing. I think he's one of my underappreciated players. I love him to bits, and I love watching him. Charlie Cameron, absolute superstar, 4 goals. For the Bulldogs, I think the two lone hands were Bailey Dale and Tom Liberatore. I think without them, this would have been a much bigger margin. Harris Andrews did a job on, I believe it was Shaki from the Dogs, just absolutely towed him up. So this is how good Brisbane can be. I think the other big takeaway is a lot of that run and carry from the back line with Zorko and Rich both going down with hamstring injuries is big for them. I think Rich may get up. I don't see Zorko getting up, but I could be wrong. I think the out there for the Bulldogs is Caden Coleman. He's able to provide that run and carry out of the back half, and I think that's huge. Just also a reminder, pause the video if you want, because my recommendation, get yourself a beverage, because it's important to stay hydrated. Not bad. All right, Carlton v St Kilda on Friday night. I'm just going to preface this by putting the most simplest statement humanly possible on this. Bad kicking is bad football. 10-18, 78 to 14-9, 93. St Kilda won because they kicked straight. I cannot emphasise that anymore. And if you want further proof, Charlie Curnow, Tim Membry. Charlie Curnow, 1 goal 4. Tim Membry, 4 straight. If Charlie Curnow kicks straight, or even if he goes 4-1, suddenly that scoreline looks very different. But as reality stands, St Kilda won. That's just a fact. For St Kilda, probably the big talking point I want to talk about is the injuries again. Howard Dougal Howard, one of the key pillars for St Kilda, got injured. I think that was a big thing there. Then there was the Butler-Clark head knock, which I watched that live, saw that on TV, and just dry retched because that was actively gross and horrifying to see. I just could not believe it. For St Kilda, I think the big takeaways, they are so much better with Patrick Ryder in that team because it frees up Rowan Marshall to play forward and more around the ground. It frees up Tim Membry to be more of a threat. It's going to free up guys like Max King to be more of a forward threat. And the other thing is Brad Hill coming in to Brad Hill to played a very wide half-backy wing role. And I think that suited Jack Sinclair because it meant he could get off the leash. And he was easily St Kilda's best and easily the best on the night. For the Blues, I think that they'll be ruining this as a lost opportunity to stay in touch with the 4. I think now it's more they're battling for the 8. So I think that's probably a big takeaway there. But well played to St Kilda. Very deserved win. They do need the wins to stay in touch with the 8. Next on our run sheet, Essendon, Sydney. And oh my God, I watched parts of the... I'm not gonna lie, I watched parts of it. I watched all the highlights and I watched the replay. I didn't watch this live. This was a replay watch. And my God, Essendon's play was so nice. That run and carry, that was a similar game plan to what they did against St Kilda, and they look so much better. And this is the Essendon we know they're capable of. So I think they are going to be a danger game. You can't go easy on them. They will get wins. I think it also underlines a point I would make earlier, but I haven't made yet. I think the AFL is a lot closer in terms of your strong teams and your weak teams, apart from, say, North Melbourne. So I think that's a big takeaway there. For Sydney, I'm going to talk about them first. Chad Warner, absolute Chad, just dominated. I think probably the best, close to the best player on the ground. He could do everything he could to get the win for them, but just not enough, and I feel sorry for him in that regard. But it's just, you can't win a game off one player playing well, I think is the reality. There are a few more bumps here. Heaney and Shield, I believe, suffered head knocks, but played it out. We don't want to see head knocks in the AFL. I think CTE is a real thing, and it is scary. Merritt, best game all season. I think he played that link-up play, and that puts pressure off Darcy Parish, so other teams look at it and go, okay, we can focus on Darcy Parish. Oh, Zach Merritt's getting off the leash. Got to put some time into him too. And I'm going to say the best player on this game, Jake Kelly, because he minimised Isaac Heaney going forward, marshalled that defence, kicked a goal himself. I think as a backman, brilliant game. He'll be my team of the week. Spoiler alert. Other than that, I think Sydney, they are ruining this opportunity. I think this puts them in an awkward spot for the 4. Also another example of good kicking is good football. Next on my run sheet, sorry, I just got to flip over the notes page. We've got Melbourne defeating the Adelaide Crows by 29 points. It looks like a comfortable margin, but I think Adelaide played really, really well. Good on Adelaide. There's a lot to like there, but what can you say about the Melbourne team that we don't already say? Petrarca's awesome. Oliver's awesome. Ed Langdon, is he the best winger in the AFL? Or is he just the most influential? Is he just playing in a good side so it makes him look better? I don't know. Let me know in the comments, I guess. I think the other thing is Melbourne with May in that side look a lot better. They look more organised. They've got their leader there. He's leading that back 6. They listen to May. I think early crow, May stays in all year. I think Melbourne are in the last weekend of the year. I think they do win it if May plays. Obviously, it's round? It's round 15, round 16, so early call. But May plays, they win. I don't know how to say that. For Adelaide, I think, again, they were competitive. I did like one move, and I thought it was interesting. It was Jordan Dawson playing in the back half. They moved him forward to try and get that ball movement better going forward to keep themselves in the game. I think Melbourne are just, again, they won because they are too good. Melbourne, no recognised rucks, so they're going to have at least Gawn, probably Jackson is in doubt, I believe, to play this week as of time of recording. So I think that will be a watch this space. Now onto the Saturday night game, the one. Geelong Cats demolished North Melbourne. I don't know what to honestly say about North Melbourne. I'll just start off with Geelong. Cameron's a gun. Hawkins is a gun. What more do you want me to say? Sam De Koning, my pick for the NAB Rising Star at this point. Out, and they still did so well. They were delivering the ball lace out. That's silver service. What can you say about Geelong? They are always a good side. They always contend. They're always in that premiership conversation. Injuries here. Kolachasny got knocked out. We hope he gets better. We hate seeing people KO'd. Hall got injured in the first few minutes. Kane Turner got knocked out in the first quarter, so suddenly they're a rotation down because they would have activated their sub, so they're still on 4, and then one more. So they're down a rotation, and then poor Ben McKay. I want to talk about Ben McKay just quickly, because I'm not going to talk about him anywhere else. Let's talk about him here. Ben McKay. At what point do you think he looks at this, and maybe he's loyal to North Melbourne, and I hope he is for their sake, but he looks at me and goes, man, we're getting pumped every week. I could go chase a flag at another team. Sort of like what Robbie Tarrant did when he went to Richmond. He was like, I think they're in the mix, so we'll have a look there. Does he look at that? Because he started forward just as an attempt to break things up. And I was listening to David Noble post-match, and he did justify it quite well because it did shuffle the forward line mix, but at the same time, it didn't help when the ball's at the Geelong end of the ground. So I feel bad for Ben McKay there. North are currently in a big review, a wholesale review. I think it was Caroline Wilson pointed out that this is a top to bottom review. The only person that's probably safe is the president, who's 6 months into the job. I don't see David Noble surviving, which I feel bad for him, but is what it is. The Collingwood Gold Coast game, probably my pick of the round, not because I'm biased or anything. 8-14 to 9-13. Again, one team kicks better than the other. That team wins by more, or in Gold Coast case, they win. Collingwood hold on for another 5-point win. And Collingwood are winning those games that they would normally lose last year. And I think that's been their big improvement. So well done there to the Pies. Nick Dacos, other rising star contender, smashed it. Provides so much run and carry for Collingwood. Josh Dacos, a lot of width, made Collingwood look a lot better when we were able to go wider, run and carry 3 goals off the wing. I think that is great. For Gold Coast, Anderson and Miller played so well in the inside. They did so well on the inside there that you have to say, if you're Gold Coast, there is a lot to look forward to as long as they improve. I don't see them. I'd love them to make the 8. I really would. Even if they made the expense of Collingwood, I would love that. I'd be like, hell yeah, Gold Coast. Big talking points here. The late injuries to Darcy Moore and Connor Buderick, and that compounded for Collingwood with Charlie Dean getting injured in the 2s. We're very light for key backs, so shit. we got North Melbourne, so hopefully we get something. Now, I'm going to get this one wrong. Herwich Paul Oe. I'm sorry if I know I butchered that. I believe it's Papua New Guinean. First game. There was a chase down he did of Steele Sidebottom late in the game. I'd love that because he was enjoying himself out there. And I love watching that in AFL. There is a lot to like about Gold Coast. And in particular, this one man, Isaac Rankin. If they haven't signed him, if Gold Coast haven't signed him, please make him signing a priority. He is so good. I like some of the stuff he can do. He kicked 4 goals. He was in my opinion, second best player in the night behind Nick Dacos. He was so good. Just 4 goals. Does stuff no one else can do. In a different universe, he wins this game off his own boot. I loved watching him. That's all I can honestly say. We'll tick over to the Sunday games. Richmond v West Coast. I don't know what to say. Richmond flexed their muscles. Richmond are a very dangerous side. I would not want to be playing them in the finals at this point. It was a good early contest, but Richmond a bit too strong. Very early shootout vibes. There was some good shootout early, then Richmond again pulled ahead. I think West Coast are a danger game if you play them. It's not a game you take lightly, especially in Perth. They will cause an upset. They will rock the 8. I don't know against who. but they will win a game or two where you look at it and go, ooh, that's interesting. More injuries again. Darcy Martin. I got so just, I don't know what I was thinking there. Elliot Yeo, there we go. And Dustin Martin. Sorry about that. Both injured. I think Martin's out for the week. Not sure about Yeo. I also, today, Dom Sheed out for the year. So, a few more changes. But for West Coast, for me, I think this is, like, Collingwood last year is West Coast this year, where their young players kick on, their older players play more consistently, get more time, get more consistent game time. I can see West Coast doing what Collingwood has done this year. That's what I actually believe. I'm not going to put money on it, but if I was having to have a flutter, I think that would be the one I would look at. So watch this space. Maybe I'm wrong. For Richmond, I think this is another case of good kicking is good football. Both sides, 28 shots. Richmond, 28. West Coast, 13-15. I think good kicking, good football. Here's another example. For me, Tim Kelly, Cripps, Nick Nat all had their best games of the year. They make such a difference. West Coast just looked better with Nick Nat in that side. For Richmond, I think the two standouts for me were Daniel Rioli, best on ground by a mile, and in my opinion, was not even close. Just the run and carry, the link-up work with Marlon Pickett and his run and carry. They make Richmond better when they are running and moving the ball. That forward handball they employed for particular plays, I loved watching that. Big fan. But I think Richmond shaping up nicely. I think they can win a final. I would not want to play them. Really keen to see them do well. All right, let's move over to GWS Hawthorn. GWS Hawthorn, for them, this was a case of good kicking, and this time good field kicking winning the game. I'm just going to bust out a quick stat. Good disposal, good football. Disposal efficiency for GWS in torrential downpour, 62%. That's pretty below average in my opinion. Hawthorn, 53%. I did a little bit further digging. I went, who was the highest disposal getter for Hawthorn? It was Tom Mitchell. He went at 51%. Compare that to Lockie Whitfield. I think he was the highest for GWS. He was 30 plus disposals. 78%. That is the clear night and day difference. Good disposal, good football, good goal kicking, good football. We want to be there. Big takeaway here, or big sad thing, I guess. James Warple injured again. I was listening to, I forgot what it was. I think it was on Sunday. They were talking like a post-match analysis. And they were talking about Warple, where he sits in Hawthorn, and because he has been dropped this year, he started as a sub. So him getting injured, I think, is unfortunate. If I was a club, I would ask about him. I think he stays at Hawthorn, but I think you could do a lot worse than having Warple in your team or on your list. For me, GWS, one player exemplified them, and it was Callum Brown. I was so happy just watching him. 4 straight goals. I do feel bad that I don't have him in my team of the week. I will justify that in a moment when we get to that section. Will Day got reported as well. I don't think I've seen what happened to him. I know he hit, if my memory serves, was Josh Kelly. I imagine he probably might get a week or a fine. He's a young player. He'd be a big loss to the Hawks. And last but not least, Fremantle v Port Adelaide. And I think this is it for Port Adelaide, going down by 8 points. This was an enjoyable game. And I think the difference in the sides was Sean Darcy exists. Sean Darcy just played so well. He destroyed the makeshift Port Adelaide ruck combo. Big difference. He teamed up with Roy Lobb. Roy Lobb, 5 goals. And then on top of that, Andrew Brayshaw was easily the best mid. It's really hard to win from that. Port did give it a go, especially when Darcy Jones got injured. Hamstring in the third quarter, got subbed off. So Port Adelaide, 3 players around. They rotated, who was it? Gray into the midfield. And Gray into the midfield, and Motlop will come on as a sub in the forward line. And that did keep him in the game. Matt Taberner injured late, so I do think there is a lot. I think Port can still have a good season. I think they're shaping the 8. I don't think they're winning or making the finals. I think they're done. It's hard to come back from 0-5. So that is the recap of the round. Let me know what you think and tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I got a bad take. Tell me if you agree. Either or. Alright, let's move on to the discussions about the crowd. Now, there was an article here. I'm just going to hide this. It's about crowd numbers. So let's make that a bit bigger. Alright, AFL crowd slumped to the lowest levels in 26 years. And this was on The Age, written by Daniel Ratcliffe. Link in the description below. Let's bring that up here. There we go. So, football fans express, and they're talking about ticketing issues, why, and they're talking at the lowest levels since 1996, with fewer than 30,000 per match attended the footy. So, immediately they say since 1996, which is the year after Fremantle got introduced. This is when Fitzroy were done. Fitzroy last year, if we all remember 1996. So at the moment, averages are sitting at 30,517, which is below 5,000 below the pre-pandemic average of 35,122. So on the basis, that looks bad. Yeah, 100% that looks bad. We don't want to see that. We do want to see the AFL thrive. So, then it talks about COVID, gives some reasons why. Let's bring up some numbers, though. Let's have a look at the numbers. So, we're just going to get everything back the way it was. And we're going to bring up this handy-dandy little table. This is off afltables.com. Link in the description for the source I used there. And it goes through the averages. Now, I've cropped this to go up to 1993. I think I went 1993, but we're going to start from 95, 96. So 95, 29,078. So that's 1995. So let's just make that a wee bigger. There we go. So we'll just put the average there just to make that a little more standouty. And that peaked in the 2010s, 36,908. So it grew steadily through the late 90s, early 2000s. Dipped off in the middle when the interstate teams were doing well, your 2013, 2012s, and then 13, 14, 15, 16 during that Hawthorn domination era. Sort of bumped back up to about 32K. Peaked at 2019, in that 2017 to 2019 year, where Richmond were dominant. And then obviously, I'm not going to count the COVID years. I think counting the COVID years is a big folly on our part because they're very compromised years. And then lastly, you've got 2022, the year, 30,910. So the crowds are peaking and troughing. So we've gone through all that. Now, I want to draw your attention to a few separate years. So, with Freo started in 95, the average was 28,000. Before 1994, 28,600 grew to 29,000. Cool. When Port Adelaide started, this was in 97, 33,000, rising from 29,000. So, growth when we introduced two teams. But then when Gold Coast and GWS started, and I'll combine them together, that was 2011, 2012, we see there was a dip, 36,000 down to 34 into 31,000. So we see there's a decline. So, is there a real issue? That's what I want to talk about first. So I'll use the 2012 data, compare it to this. So you see 2012, 31,509 versus this year, 30,910. That's not a big change, if I'm going to be honest. Like, in that comparison, it's 601 actually. So 601 is your key difference there. And this article feels alarmist suddenly. But let's talk about why. Because the overarching question is not, is there a crowd issue? Oh my God, people aren't watching the football. Is how do we get people back to the football? And this article talked about it and talked about the cause. So let's sum that up properly. So I think the first thing is, and it ties into what we know, the economy is stuffed. I'm not going to give you an economics lesson here. That is, go watch a YouTube economics, please. Like, they can explain it much better than I can. All I say is inflation's out of control. Took hits during COVID. People couldn't go out. Budgets became a lot tighter. Optional stuff like going to the football got blown away by the way, got put to the wayside, and I'll talk about why after. But the cost is because even though general admission has only gone up $2 over like the past decade, there's more variable pricing. So if you want a closer seat, it's going to cost a lot more. So general admission has become a smaller area, and that's all due to supply and demand. Because people want better seats, they'll pay more. Supply and demand. And then that ties into the CPI and COVID. As we know, household budgets took a hit. I think the big thing is TV coverage. And I'm going to bring up another article in a sec about TV rights. So in 2015 to 2022, 738 million. I believe it's up this year, unless I missed something, and I think they're renegotiating this year, but it grew a lot during the pandemic. The TV coverage got better because it had to. And I think the big thing TV has for it is it's convenient. Going to football is a whole day thing. You plan your whole day around it. If you're at home, you can switch between games. You can access 9 games for the price of maybe 2 tickets. Like that's per week. Like that there's a lot there. And then the rule changes. I'm not going to bash umpires. I think that for me is low-hanging fruit. I'm better than that. So if we look at low-hanging fruit, bashing umpires, the rule changes. I don't think they're enjoyable for spectators. And so if you go to the game just to get frustrated, why would you do something you don't like? Like that doesn't make any sense. So there's that aspect as well. Now, just for a quick point, I agree with umpire respect. We need to be respecting umpires because without umpires, we don't have a game. I think that's entirely reasonable. But there's no consistency. It is so subjective. What is disrespectful to one person will not be disrespectful to another. And I think that's a big thing. And I think the last thing is, this year, Victoria's had its coldest winter to date. As of the 5th of the 7th, this has been the coldest winter to date, barely getting above 10 degrees on some days. Like, it's cold. Why would you go to the MCG? It's freaking cold. So, like, that, I would rather stay home, watch it at home, stay warm, you know? Like, it's those 4 factors. But I think there's another overall thing. How do we get people to care about the AFL? Because if you look at it, I'll use an example. Like, I'll use the Geelong North game. Geelong North. If you're a Geelong supporter, you're watching that because, oh, this is so good. My team's awesome. If you're North, you probably turn off the TV. And if you're a neutral supporter and you want to watch footy on Friday night, are you going to watch 110-point belting, or are you going to watch Collingwood play Gold Coast in a really fun match? And I think that's that balance right there and then. How do we make the game more interesting? What can we do? How do we get people to care? And to further emphasize that, let's look at the crowd. Let's go back to these crowd numbers. In particular, let's focus on... Whoops, wrong one. Let's focus on... We'll go 07. We'll talk about 07. We'll make this a touch on the bigger side. So, first number I'm going to draw your attention to is the Geelong years from 07 to 2009. 36,000 pretty consistently until 2010, dipping to 34,000. So during that Geelong domination era of 07 to 11, they were the best team in that period. You cannot change my mind. 3 flags in 5 years says that. Pretty good numbers. And then you have a bit of a change in the guard. You got Hawthorn, Sydney doing their thing. But crowds dip and peak at 32. So we're going through these numbers again. And then it goes into the Cinderella stories of 16 and 17, I believe. Yep, 16, 17 with Richmond and the Bulldogs, and we start to see that uptick because people cared. People want to see the Bulldogs win. People like, hell yeah, I want to see the Dogs win. In Victoria, grand final week, just thinking back to it, every neutral supporter is like, I want to see the fucking Dogs win. Yeah, I want to see Bulldogs win. I'm pumped by that. Same in 2017, because Richmond have not had success since 1980. Everyone's like, yeah, I want to see this. And then 2018 was the West Coast year where Richmond, I think if they played the grand final, they win that. Just they lost because of Mason Cox. So people were invested. And then 2019, again, Richmond, how good is Richmond? Do we want to see them keep being good? So there's that investment there. Again, I'm going to discount 2021, 2020 because I don't think there is as much care there. I think the main story is Melbourne. How good are Melbourne? But I don't know if the investment's in there, in that, can we see Melbourne win? We want to see Melbourne win. And that's the thing. I don't think there's a feel-good story for people to get around. I think that investment in the AFL isn't there. If there's no investment, people don't go. And so how do we get people invested? So I'm going to swing back, and I'm going to go back to... Hold on. I want to go back to this. We're going to go back into this, and we're going to go back into the article, because there is an interesting point I want to talk about from the article. It talked about the low crowd. So if you have a look, you can see some lovely low crowds in certain areas. There was a game that was held. I'm just trying to, if I can find it. Here we are. Giants, Eagles, 5,000. 6,000, the Dogs and Suns. They talk about 70,000 being low, but I think, again, that's because of winter. But you can just see there are low games. But how do we make it feel less empty? There's also the North GWS game. I think that only got a 6,000 to 8,000 from memory. How do we get people in here? Now, for me, the solution... Now, I'm going to give two solutions. The first one is going to be a no shit Sherlock solution, and you're going to hear it and you go, duh, Mathew, we're not stupid. Firstly, Boutique Stadium. I'm going to put some skin on here. Now, a lot of my solutions are the assumption this will not work. So, Optus Oval is capped at 20k. The assumption is no stadium deals, so we don't have to play X games at the MCG. For smaller games, you want to hold them at a smaller boutique stadium. I think Optus Oval is my example. Or you have a 20,000 to 30,000 stadium, so suddenly it looks less empty, more inviting, and I think people want that old-timely feel, for lack of a better term. Now, I'm putting my skin out there. Obviously, I know there are massive infrastructure costs. I know that's not feasible. So yeah, that's... there are some ways this wouldn't work. I think making a better product's ultimately the number one, so that's more consistent rules. But I wanted to put a little bit of skin out there, talked about the stadium, because I think that is more interesting. All right, let's tick over to the team of the week. So, team of the week. Whoops, giving spoils away. Sorry about that. All right, let's start off in the back line. And I've already talked about this man, Jake Kelly, absolute beast for Essendon. I think the big difference there, he's at fullback. James Sicily and Daniel Rioli. I think Daniel Rioli's run and carry from the back line was the big impetus of Richmond winning. Sicily can play that third tall, just clunking marks left, right, and centre. Such a big difference to that Hawthorn side. I shudder to think how bad they would be without him. On the back flanks, we've got Jack Sinclair and Adam Sard, two best players on Friday night by far and away. Was not even close. Both providing the team's run and carry. Great meters gained. Ball movement, just perfect. And Harris Andrews absolutely did a number on the Dogs. organising that back line. He's our centre-half back. Into the midfield, on the wings, I've got Ed Langdon and Marlon Pickett. If you listen to the round review, these are not shocking in any way. The rucks, we've got Sean Darcy, I think far and away the best. At his feet, Clayton Oliver, Christian Petrarca, Andrew Brayshaw. Andrew Brayshaw having a great year. One of the big reasons that the Dockers beat Port. Oliver Petrarca, I don't know what more you need to say. They were the two best players on the ground. It wasn't even close. And then the forward line and bench. And this is where I'm going to do a few bits of justification. All right, on the flanks, Lincoln McCarthy and Charlie Cameron with centre-half forward Jeremy Cameron. I think Jeremy Cameron speaks for himself. I'd say he's almost the player of the round for me. Just 30 touches. He was everywhere. He's so good. Such a great recruit for Geelong. Lincoln McCarthy. I was going to put Brown from GWS in. I decided not to. It was a real coin flip. I think I changed about 4 times while I was putting it together. So I made the call. We're going to go Lincoln McCarthy. I think if he played for a Victorian team now with this form, he'd be so highly rated. Isaac Rankin, Tom Hawkins, Rory Lobb make up your forward line. Hawkins out the square. 5 goals. I don't know what I need to say. Isaac Rankin, I've already said my love for him. I hope Gold Coast sign him. Rory Lobb to play as a second ruck. And as that forward. Now, admittedly, I think this forward line is a bit tall, but I'll run that risk. On the bench, we've got Nick Dacos, Chad Warner, Zach Merritt, Tim Membry. I think Tim Membry, I'm putting in there, I'm rewarding good goal kicking. 4 goals straight compared to Charlie Curnow, 1 goal 4. I think that's the big reason I put him in. Zach Merritt, best game of the year. One of the big impetuses of that Essendon engine room doing so well. Nick Dacos, again, played such a great game. Out the halfback, going to be a real champion for Collingwood, and his brother was very close in contention for the wing. I did consider Miller, Anderson, Neal as probably the next in line midfielders. There were a lot of top performing mids this round, so I couldn't do a lot. Someone has to miss out. Brown, we've already talked about. Mitch Duncan, whoops. Yep, that's a bit loft. Liberatore got cut off there. Hind, Moore was the key back. I think I preferred the game from Andrews and Kelly Moore. That's why Moore wasn't in there. There were so many top performing mids there, so I could have. It's a lottery after Petrarca and basically after Petrarca and Oliver, it's a lottery who you pick there. Mitch Duncan on the flank, game 250 played really well as well. Hind did so many nice things, so they were all considered. I'm happy with this team. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Tell me I'm a horrible human because I forgot someone. Tell me I don't know anything about football because, well, I'm a nuffy with no idea. You're not wrong. But this is how I read it. This is a team I think could do all right if it played in a game. I think it's a touch tall, but I'm willing to put some skin out there and just say, yeah, I'm doing it. All right, let's look at the round preview coming up. So, I'm going to do the round preview a touch different to normal. So, I'm going to put my tips in as we talk through it, and we'll have a look at the the consequences of the ladder. So, firstly, Thursday night game of the round, Geelong v Melbourne, $1.92 each way. I don't think the bookies can split them. I can't split them. I'd love for this to be a draw because I think that'd be great. I think Melbourne win, but I'm picking it with zero confidence. I'm not picking that with confidence. I think if Melbourne win this, it's on the back of guys like Ed Langdon just getting off the leash with the run and carry. I think Oliver Petrarca room for big games again. I think Gawn coming in is going to be a bit much, but Geelong do have the system to pull this off. I think for Geelong to... if Geelong win this, I think they are a lock for top 4. I think Melbourne win this, they're a lock for the top spot. So we'll put the margin there. We'll go close. I'm going to put this at 10. So I'm going to put this at 10. Yep, so because that's going to play around with percentage. On Friday night, I think this is a big crunch game for the Bulldogs. I think Bulldogs need to win this to stay in touch against the Sydney Swans. Sydney rightful favourites. I think I think Bontempelli is due for a really big game. He's been playing well without playing great. So I will back the Dogs in. I think Sydney, I did not like what I saw against Essendon. And I think the Dogs having Tim English confirmed in is a big difference. They look a lot better with Tim English in that side. Collingwood versus North Melbourne. Actually, margin. I think this is another close game. Collingwood v North Melbourne. Collingwood wins. We'll put it 50 points. I think that's a very comfortable win. I don't know what to say about North. They're in shambles. They will win one somewhere. I just don't see it here. Next we have the Suns v Richmond. Real danger game for Richmond. I think Richmond experience should be too good, and I think that puts the Suns season away. I think the Richmond system is holding up at the moment, so I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer in Richmond. This is the most interesting, fascinating game of the round. St Kilda Fremantle. St Kilda need to win. I think St Kilda almost needs to win every game from this point on. And I think Fremantle, if they want to make top 4, win every game from this point on. I want Fremantle to win. I think Fremantle are the more consistent team. You don't know what St Kilda rocks up. Do we get the St Kilda that played against Carlton, that looked really good in that last quarter? Do we get the St Kilda that turned up against Essendon, which looked very mediocre? And Fremantle have been consistent. They have grinded out games. They have put their head over the ball. They have played tough football. It's at Marvel Stadium. I'm going to go with Fremantle, but this is a game where if St Kilda win, I'll be like, yep, checks out. In the battle of the also-rans, Port Adelaide v the Giants. I think Port Adelaide are just playing better. I think Giants are just playing the year out to get their new coach. I think that's Alistair Clarkson, by the way. I don't see the Giants winning. I can't see it. We got to go back and do some margins. Yeah, that's about right. A mid 20 point there win for Richmond. The Dockers in a very close game. And Port Adelaide, very comfortable against GWS. I'm doing this all for the percentage, just to give a bit more of a realistic feel. Brisbane v Essendon. So, Brisbane will win this. I think Essendon will play well or better than they have all season, but you got to say Brisbane, because they're in the mix for the finals, have to do well here. In another battle of the also-rans, Hawthorn Adelaide, to fucking flip a coin, I guess. We'll go Hawthorn because of the odds. I don't really have much to say here. I think this is going to be a very open game. I don't see there being a lot of really intense pressure. But I can see this being a comfortable 20-point win. 20 to 30-point win, apparently, based on mine. And then the danger game. This game I'm excited for. If I was going to put money on this round, it'd be on West Coast. I can see them beating Carlton. I can see this happening. Now, I'm not going to tip West Coast. I am tipping Carlton, but it will be close. It will be a scrappy match. Because Voss will get into the Blues. Plain and simple. They need to win this. They want to make top 4. They need to win this. So, the ladder, if my tips go as planned, we have 4 teams on 36. We have the Bulldogs, Sydney, St Kilda, all fighting for that 8th spot. Suddenly, Richmond, a game clear. Collingwood, a game clear. Carlton, Geelong, all a game clear. Collingwood in touching distance of the top 4. Do not see it happening, though. I think, for me, this top 8, I think it's down to 10 with the Dogs. But so much depends on St Kilda. If St Kilda beat Fremantle, just for context, suddenly they're a game clear of the Dogs. And the thing that's keeping teams alive in that hunt for St Kilda is their percentage at 106, compared to every other team in the 8, with Collingwood being their closest at 109. This is based off mine. I think that keeps them in the hunt. For the battle for the spoon, I don't see the bottom 6 honestly changing. I just don't. From GWS to North, I think it stays in that order, or you flip some positions around. It's just draft picks at this point. I think Gold Coast and Port are also rans, but like I feel bad. Port came from 0-5 and they only have themselves to playing. Gold Coast have been playing well without the rewards. So that is how I think the ladder will look at the end of the round. And now we'll move on to Supercoach talk, where we see me spaff my team up the wall. I won't talk too much about this. We don't want to see my mediocrity because, well, it's smegging mediocre. So I scored a paltry 2,316, which plummets me to about 18,000 in the ranking. Absolute garbage. My trades last week were bringing in Aaron Hall for Tom Stewart like a complete dummy. So, huzzah! I am very stupid. I am oh so stupid. This week I get Team English back. Hooray. Luke Jackson out means I get my first donut of the year. Couldn't do anything about that. When I saw the teams, I just went, well, I can't trade my way out of this one. So what can I do? I've only got 2 trades left. I have gone way too hard, and that's a learning experience for me. Life goes on. But what I want to talk about is Aaron Hall replacements. I think with Zorko going down, with Rich going down, I think Rich is playing, but if he is out for an extended period, you may be looking to trade him. If you got Hall, you definitely trade him. If you got Zorko, you probably trade him too. I thought, let's have a look at some replacements. So let's bring up the defenders, and we'll sort it by price. We'll go by highest price. Now, obviously, if you can bring Dawson in and you can bring Sicily in, I think bringing them in is the safest play you can possibly do at the moment. In that next rung down, Sinclair, I'm going to put in that top rung as well. So if you can get Dawson, Sicily, or Sinclair, go for them. After that, I think Doherty, Sardi are best 2. Mason Redmond's been playing well the past 5. You can see averaging close to near elite numbers, 117, 113. Hewitt, everyone would have. Outside of that, if you want to look at a value option for Hall, so you want to go down, I think my bet would be Lockie Whitfield. Watching him on the weekend, only 96 points, but he has been playing better. So if you want to bet on him turning it around, I think that is a worthwhile shout. Outside of that, Jake Lloyd, I wouldn't be picking Jake Lloyd. I think that is a trap. I wouldn't touch Ridley. That's a trap. What could be interesting if your team is set up for it is looking at pivoting a defensive mid. Say if you got a Jan Short in the midfield for whatever reason, or a Jack Crisp, pivoting that from the defense. And I'll bring my team up to show what I mean. Bringing that from the defense. So that from the defense. So if you had Jan Short sitting in M8, pivoting him up and trading Hall out for Jack Sinclair. Jack Sinclair, what am I saying? Jack Steele. I think Jack Steele is my buy of the round. I think if you need a mid upgrade or if you've got luxury trades, I would almost say if I had the trades and didn't have the Aaron Hall problem, I would turn Patrick Cripps into Jack Steele. That is like, if you've got the luxury trades, you've got 6+ trades, I would 100% be doing that. I think that is value for money. You're going to have a unique, and you can build from there. So let's get something a bit more interesting. Let's do captain selections. Now, I'm going to go through some captain options. They're going to be midfielders, obviously. And we're going to go through those players individually. I'm just going to talk through who is where. So we start off with Clayton Oliver, who is playing Geelong on the Thursday night. So I'm going to split this up at the Port Adelaide game. So we're going to have Teakle as essentially our non-scoring captain pick. So vice captains before Teakle, captains after Teakle. Now, obviously, if you go Oliver as your vice captain, then put one of the other players after Oliver. I think I don't need to explain loopholes to you. I think you're more than competent to do that. I'm just bringing up the fixture just to remind myself as well. Or it could just not load. You'll love to see it. All right, here we go. So Geelong, Melbourne, Clayton Oliver, 127, past 3, averaging roughly 130 against Geelong. I think that is a great shout, especially with Max Gawn back. Max Gawn being back, I think means he gets better service. He's going to get more clearances, more contested touches. I think he's a very good shout for your vice-captain pick. But if you don't have Oliver for whatever reason, the next player I'd look at is Jack Macrae playing Sydney in what will be a highly contested game. But his recent form, just be aware, 292s and a 116 doesn't fill me with confidence. But if you want someone reliable and consistent, I think Macrae is a good shout. Just be warned, scoring history not on his side. Marcus Bontempelli, on the other hand, averaging 115 versus Sydney. And the previous 3 of 116, 114, and 108. Bontempelli can go big. I think we need to just acknowledge that. He's a mid-forward. If you want to go something a bit more unique, I think Bontempelli is a great vice-captain option. If you don't want to, for whatever reason, go, Clayton Oliver, I think Bontempelli is a great, just let's see if this works type option. Moving on, Gold Coast, I think you always need to look at Jared Witts because he's having a great year. He's up against Richmond last year, or didn't play him in 2021, played him last in 2020, 93. These numbers are a bit lower. I think if you're absolutely needing a Hail Mary play, I think Jared Witts is always a good go-to because it's one of those, it could be a lot worse. So I think Witts, if it's a Hail Mary, is someone I'd look at. Callum Mills from Sydney always has the potential to go big. He's also in the earlier game against the Dogs. 112, 127 early in the year, only 70. So just be a little careful there. For me, I'm probably going to stay away from Callum Mills if I had him. He's a bit of a form dip recently. I'm not sure Sydney are going to play that well. He's probably a no for me this week. Next, James Sicily. I think he's always, like Witts, a good Hail Mary, God, I hope this works play. I need to, if I need to make up points and I know I'm going to lose by going conservative, this is where Sicily and Witts come in, guys. This is where I'd look at Sicily and Witts. So they're playing Adelaide. I think this will be a very open game. I don't see a lot of close checking pressure here. But he doesn't have recent form. So, the last time he played in 2019. So you're going on a bit of this year's form, a bit of speculation, a bit of theory crafting. So, but again, like Witts, if you need the Hail Mary, I think Sicily is your shout. Rory Laird. Rory Laird has been a picture of consistency. Lowest score this year, 93 v Port Adelaide. Dipped below 100 once this year. He is playing well. If you need a safe 130 or 120 to 130, he is your man. You pick him without a shadow of doubt. You pick him, you go, I will pick this man to be my captain. Hawthorn recently, 102, 111, 178. I like that 178. I think if you need someone safe on the Sunday, Rory Laird's your man. Darcy Parish, also on the Sunday, the early Sunday game v Brisbane. Not great form. I probably would steer away from Parish. He's probably a strong no, but he has had a good season. I think him and Merritt almost are the same at this point in terms of that risk. Lachie Neale, picture of consistency, also against Essendon. 198 earlier in the year and 2 157s to go with that. Lowest score was 60 in his first year when he was at Fremantle. I don't know how I can sell you on Lachie Neale any more than look at the 198. Look at the 198. So for me, personally, I'm going Oliver as my vice captain. If I need a Hail Mary, I would go Sicily. If I want something super safe, I would flip a coin between Lachie Neale and Rory Laird. I think Bontempelli, just because of the way the fixtures line up, is not a shout this week unless you don't have Oliver. So that's sort of my captain takes there. So just again, my vice captain, I think the safest one is Oliver. After that, I think the captain options are Neale and Laird. Pick which one you like and go from there. And now our last section, media calls of the week. Now, this section, I'm going to grab a media call and we're going to talk about it and unpack it a little bit. And the first media call is one we're all familiar with. It's the Cameron Lynn quote. I'd be worried if I was the Saints. This is from the Alan Lingy Show on 7AFL. Please check them out. They are pretty awesome. I'd be worried if I was the Saints. Now, this was posted after round 1 against Collingwood. And then I'm going to juxtapose this or compare it to this, which is the Cam Luke's power rankings on the Armchair Experts. And they've ranked the teams genuine, wildcard, fans should be excited, time running out, play the kids. Now, this is a few weeks old, so this will change a little bit. And interestingly, the Saints are the wildcard team here. And I want to talk about what this means, because I think these are really good juxtaposition points here, and I'm going to unpack it. So, firstly, I agree with this quote. I'm going to get that right off the bat. I agree because St Kilda are super inconsistent. In the AFL, we're in the business of winning premierships. That's what we ultimately do. Can anyone feasibly look at that St Kilda list and go, yeah, there's a premiership there? Like, it's very hard to make. And we've got to look at why. And I think the first bit is, let's look at recruiting. There is so many recycled players. Players from other clubs that have come in and probably not had the impact desired, that haven't really taken them to that next level. And let's look at Butler, Higgins, Crouch, Zach Jones, Dan Hanbury, Brad Hill. Brad Hill's on the same average money per year, 900K. I remember looking this up, as Jeremy Cameron. Would you rather spend 900 grand on Jeremy Cameron or Brad Hill? Exactly. So, like, in the short term, they're cool, but they're not your long-term guys. Jeremy Cameron coming out the square, that's a long-term proposition. So, I think their recruiting of those players, like, yeah, they've done well. They did really well with Ryder. I think that needs to be said. Ryder makes them a better player. I don't know if Hill makes them an overall better team like Ryder does. I think Ryder's been a really good pick for them. Their development. Let's look at Geelong's youngsters. Like, Geelong, their development. They've got kids like Sam DeConning. Narkle's probably going to leave, but he's developed. You've had their younger players play through the years. Like, I'll just go through their list of players that have come through their system. Blitz halves, the Guthrie boys, Dempsey, Menegola, Atkins, Radaglia, DeConning again, I've mentioned him. Stevens and Nevitt, he's played as well. They've all developed. Big tick there. If you compare it to St Kilda, who are their youngsters? It's like Highmore, Burns, like guys that have made a genuine impact. And that tells me, first off the bat, the system at St Kilda in the long term doesn't work compared to a Geelong team where it works. Because you got to remember, these two in 2009 both contended for a flag, and since then you cannot tell me that St Kilda's been better than Geelong in that extended period. They haven't. So let's keep going. Look at injuries. Now, Hanbury's been injured, Geary, Bartel, Caulfield, Hayes. They've also had McKenzie and Owens concussed. So they do have players out. But that's where depth comes in. That's where those in Geelong, if they get an injury, they have someone come in and take that spot. Like Higgins can't even get a game. Dowhouse can't get a game. Because there's competition for spots. There's depth. In Geelong, you earn your game. In McKenzie and Owens, like, they're concussed, and that's really unfortunate. I hope they get better. But as a whole, Geelong have depth. That's what I feel St Kilda lacks. And I am coming back to a point here, recruiting. Because St Kilda's recruiting has not been good as, say, a Geelong's, that depth is compromised. So let's look at the Geelong free agents or the recruits from other clubs or the discard pile. You got Tui, Jeremy Cameron, Isaac Smith, Stengel. They all came in. They all did a specific job. Why is Higgins there? Why is Crouch there? Does Crouch do the same thing as other midfielders? Does Jones do the same thing as Crouch? That's sort of the point I'm getting at. They don't do... Like, I feel like watching St Kilda, and maybe someone who's more in-depth with St Kilda can give me a bit more in the comments. I'd be really appreciative of that. Crouch and Jones, like, do they do the same thing? Like, you look at Isaac Smith. He came in and he gives outside run. Jeremy Cameron plays the key post. Tui gives run from that back line. They all do specific roles and they do them so well. And that brings into my point. I'd be worried if I was the Saints because their systems are not... Like, you can't look at me in the eye and say they're not working. Like, 2020, everyone was like, hell yeah, hell yeah, St Kilda, they're going to be really good. And then they did nothing in 2021, and this year they're probably not making the 8. And that's disappointing. If you're a Saints fan, and I have a lot of Saints, I know some Saints fans who are genuine, salt-of-the-earth people who who just get disappointed year on year. And that sucks. So, that's why I think that quote holds up. I'd be worried because the systems at St Kilda are not working. It is a structural, systemic problem. And a win will not paper over the cracks. That's the reality. All right, let's look at these power rankings. A little dated. I probably put Cats in the genuine flag contenders. Probably move Swans into the wildcard teams. I want to talk about the Saints here. They're a wildcard team, and one thing they've been tied to, or so two things that have come out of St Kilda I've read: Ratting out and let's get Jordan De Goey. I don't think Jordan De Goey is the right buy for them. I think he's very exciting, and I can see him flopping as well. As a Collingwood supporter, I kind of hope he goes. I mean, he's exciting. He can win a flag. He's got that Dustin Martin energy. He just hasn't gone on with it like Dusty. And I think that speaks more volumes about Collingwood as well. But if he goes, cool. We get a draft pick and we clear up salary cap. Yay. Happy about that. Where St Kilda, they're that wild card team. They can cause damage to the top 8 teams. They can also drop games, which is really painful for their supporters. So, for me, I don't know what the panacea is for St Kilda. I don't know. I don't have those answers. I don't think getting rid of the coach is the right call, just for comparison's sake. It's like if Collingwood have a bad year next year and we get rid of McRae, or next year if the Suns get rid of Dew. I think those are very bad decisions and very unfair on those coaches when it's a systemic failure. St Kilda, I think you keep Ratton coach, plain and simple. I don't know if signing De Goey's worth it. I think getting your systems right is going to provide more value than De Goey. Ultimately, I hope De Goey goes, though, and this will be my final thought. I hope De Goey goes. I don't think he'll go. I think he stays with Collingwood. I don't, you read what he does, outside, managing him for St Kilda, it's got Andrew Lovett written all over it again. If you're not sure about that, Google it and read that debacle that was. So anyway, my final thoughts. Please leave feedback. Please leave like. I've got some links on there referencing all the pictures I used. Big thank you to the No Copyright Sounds for providing the music. I will leave a link there for them as well. And make sure you leave feedback. If you want to see more of this, great. If you want me to never do this again, please let me know. If you want to tell me to go F myself, that's also acceptable. So I'm going to play in the outro. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.